Well, hey everybody, my name is Kent, lead pastor here at Epic. Everybody at all of our locations, do me a favor, help me give a big warm welcome to everybody who's with us today. Yeah, come on. So glad you braved the weather and made it out to church. I'm telling you, you're going to heaven. Maybe, I don't know. Anyway, so I hope so. Anyways, we're gonna have a great day today. I'm glad that you're here. Hey, we started off this year with a brand new series called Potential. Now, last week we had to take a break from this series because of the weather, but this week we're picking up where we left off. And my hope for this series is that it challenges you and encourages you to do some things this year that will put you in the best position possible for you to reach your full potential. Man, I want you to be able to look back at the end of this year and say, man, this 2019 was a great year. Like, I grew so much this year. I developed so much this year. My relationship with God is more vibrant and more meaningful than it's ever been before. Man, I feel like I have more clarity around the purpose of my life than I've ever had before. Man, I feel like I'm more focused than I've ever been before. And as a result, I'm just happier than I've ever been before. See, here's what I know. That won't happen by accident, will it? No. You're going to have to put some intention behind making that happen. You're going to be intentional about your time and your energy in order for that to happen. Now, the good news is that I believe that we're all just a few key decisions away from that being our story at the end of this year. And here's the thing, even if you don't believe that for you, I want you to know that we believe that for you. And we want to be part of seeing that happen in your life this year. And so here's what we've done. We've broken this series up into 3 parts: moments, movement, and mission. We've already talked about moments. Today, we're going to talk about movement. And essentially what we're talking about is how God uses each of these things in our lives to help us reach our full potential. And so if you've missed any of this series so far, I want to encourage you to make sure you go back, take some time, and listen to the podcast online. Make sure you watch that and catch up. All right, so to kick us off and get us going the direction we need to go this morning, I've got a little bit of an embarrassing confession to make on behalf of myself and my wife, which I'm sure she appreciates. So here it is. My wife, Tiffany, and I actually had a piece of exercise equipment in our bedroom for at least 2 years, and the only thing we ever used it for was to hang clothes on it. Anybody else ever done that? Yeah, 2 whole years. In fact, we were talking about this, and we were talking about this piece of exercise equipment, and we couldn't even remember what kind of exercise machine it was. Like, not the brand. I'm talking like type or category. We didn't know if it was an elliptical or a treadmill or a stationary bike or a stair stepper. We had no clue. We just know that we never used it, not even once. Isn't that terrible? That is terrible. Now, I was thinking about, I was like, who does that? We does that. The Jacobs, we do that, right? Which begs the question, if we weren't going to use it, then why in the world did we get it in the first place, right? And why in the world did we let it take up so much space in our bedroom for 2 whole years? Why did we do that? Here's the reason why. As I thought about it, here's what it came down to. We had a moment of belief. All right, and let me explain what I mean by that. At some point, we had a moment where we believed in fitness, and we believed in exercise. We believed in health. There was a moment where we believed that we should start getting our cardio in. That's something we actually said to each other. We should start getting our cardio in. Now, we believed this so much in that moment that we decided to dedicate a very large portion of our bedroom to this massive machine that we did not use at all. And it was a daily reminder of this belief that we had at one time. But there was one problem. We never acted on any of those beliefs. Not once. We never acted on any of those beliefs. Now, those were all good things to believe, right? You should believe in fitness. You should believe in health. You should believe in exercise. You should believe in getting your cardio in. But we never acted, not once, on any of those beliefs. Not one time. You see, in so many areas of life, not just with health, it's not enough to just believe some good things, right? No, you got to do something with those beliefs. I mean, think about this. We all believe pretty much the same things about exercise. We'd even use some of the same phrases. We'd say some of the same some of the same arguments or give some of the same points. We'd say exercise is good for you. We'd say it's part of a healthy lifestyle. We'd say it helps you sleep better. We'd say it gives you more energy. I don't know how that works, but it works, right? It gives you more energy. Here's the thing. The thing that separates a healthy person from an unhealthy person is not what they believe about exercise. We all believe the same stuff about exercise. The thing that separates a healthy person from an unhealthy person is what they do with that belief. That's the thing that makes the difference. You see, the value of believing is found or unlocked or realized in doing. In fact, believing, think about this, believing is of no value to you if it does not inform what you do. And here's the reason why. It's because it's the doing that makes a difference. It's the doing that makes the difference. Now, this is actually a really important principle when it comes to our spiritual lives as well. See, if you're going to reach your full potential this year, 2019, then it's not enough to just believe some things. No, if you're going to reach your full potential, then you're going to have to make sure that the things that you believe really do start to inform the things that you do. Why? Because it's doing that makes the difference. Believing in Jesus and following Jesus. I want to talk about this for just a second. Believing in Jesus and following Jesus. Over and over again, Jesus would invite people to follow him. Not just to believe in him, but to follow him. Why is that? It's because you could stay where you are and believe. But following Jesus, no, that requires action. Following Jesus, that requires movement. That requires moving from where you are. There's a difference between believing in Jesus and following Jesus. Listen, you can't follow Jesus and stay where you are. You cannot follow Jesus and stay where you are. You can't follow Jesus and not forgive others the way that Jesus taught us to forgive others. You can't follow Jesus and not love your neighbor the way that Jesus taught us to love our neighbor. You can't follow Jesus and then not give generously the way that Jesus taught us to give generously. You can't follow Jesus and then not put others first the way that Jesus taught us to put others first. Listen, following Jesus is about more than just believing some things. Following Jesus is about belief in action. It's about belief put into action. Why? Because it's doing that makes the difference. It's doing that makes the difference. Now, Jesus taught about this several different times and in several different ways. And one of my favorite ways that he taught about this was over in Matthew chapter 25. Jesus tells what is a pretty famous parable. Now, a parable is just a made-up story in order to make a point. And so it's important as we read through this morning that you remember that none of this actually happened. Jesus just told this story in order to get the people that he was talking to understand something in the moment. It's kind of like when you tell your kids a fairy tale to teach them a lesson. Jesus did the exact same thing. He uses this made-up story to teach us about God's perspective on our lives. And so here we go. Let's jump into it. Matthew 25, verse 14, it says this. Again, it'll be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted his wealth to them. Again, it'd be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted his wealth to them. So there's this rich man who's about to leave on this journey, and he gives his money to his servants, not to keep, but he gives his money to his servants in order for them to manage that money for him while he's gone. Verse 15, to one he gave 5 bags of gold, to another 2 bags, and to another 1 bag, each according to his ability. And then he went on his journey. And so just like any other boss or leader of an organization, he looks at these people, he looks at his employees, and he gives them each different amounts of responsibility based on their abilities. So he looks at the one guy and he goes, man, you are super talented. You're gonna get 5 bags of gold. Then he looks at the other guy and he says, man, you're a really gifted manager. I'm gonna give you 2 bags of gold. And then he looks at the third guy and he's like, you get 1 bag. That's it. He's like, you get 1 bag, no explanation. Now, you might be thinking, but that's not fair. It doesn't have to be fair. Jesus made this story up. It didn't happen. Get over it. You know what I'm saying? So here we go. Now, he continues, verse 16. The man who had received 5 bags of gold went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 more bags. So also the one who had 2 bags of gold gained 2 more. And so right away, we see that these first two guys, they put their money to work right away, right? They're investing, they're comparing notes, they're making trades, right? And over time, it says that they doubled what they had been given. Verse 18. But the man who had received one bag went off, get this, and dug a hole in the ground and hid his master's money. Now, the people listening to Jesus tell this story at this point, like if they were thinking about something else, all of a sudden they're like, what? He did what? Because this actually was a lot of money. A whole bag of gold, just dug a hole and put it in the ground. And they're like, what? Jesus was a master storyteller. So everybody's leaning in. Verse 19. After a long time, or after even a lifetime, it says the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. In other words, he shows back up and he's about to ask them a question. Here's the question. What did you do with what I gave you? What did you do with what I gave you? Verse 20. The man who had received 5 bags of gold brought the other 5. And listen, he's pumped. He's so excited. He's been looking forward to this day. He's been asking questions like, is he back yet? Is he coming back yet? Is it tomorrow? Do you know when he'll be here? Could you tell me? Could you tell me? Could you tell me? I can't wait to show him what I did with the 5 bags of gold that he gave me. I made 5 more. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 5 bags of gold. See, I've gained 5 more. He says, look what I did. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful with a few things. I'll put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. High fives all the way around. Verse 22. The man with 2 bags of gold also came. He couldn't wait for this day either. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 2 bags of gold. See, I have gained 2 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful with a few things. I'll put you in charge of many things. Come and share in your master's happiness. Again, high fives all the way around. And so now in this story, everybody knows there's just that one dude left, right? The one who dug a hole and put the money in the ground, right? And he's the last one to show up. And I think he's the last one to show up because he's out in the yard somewhere with a shovel like, where did I put that thing? Like, I know it's around here somewhere. I just don't know exactly where I put that thing. So finally he finds it, right? He takes the muddy bag of gold and he brings it to the master. And I want you to notice how different his conversation is with this boss. He says to him, verse 24, he says, then the man who, he actually didn't say that. It says, then the man who received the 1 bag of gold came. Master, he said, I knew that you are a hard man, harvesting where you've not sown and gathering where you've not scattered seed. So I was afraid. And I went out and hid your gold in the ground. See, here's what belongs to you, which I think is funny. There's this muddy bag of gold, and he's like, here it is. Here it is. It's all a mess, you know. This guy, get this, this guy looks his boss in the face and says, listen, I know it's a mess, but it's your fault. Like, this is your fault. Now listen, at all of our locations, just right now, if you are a boss of any kind, can we just have a moment together? Like me and you, can we sympathize for this guy? Because I guarantee you've had this happen to you before, right? Like they didn't do what you asked them to do, and so now it's a mess. And not only is it a mess, but somehow they're convinced that it's your fault, right? And they refuse to take any responsibility whatsoever, and you're just like, sweet baby Jesus, I don't even know what to say to you right now. Look how, right? Look how this boss responds. This is what he says, verse 26. His master replied, you wicked, lazy servant. Try that one out at work next time. Just let that one rip. No, don't do that, please. Please don't do that. This is a made-up story, all right? So, you wicked, lazy servant. You knew that I harvest where I've not sown and that I gather where I've not scattered seed. In other words, he's saying, listen, no. The problem isn't that I'm a hard man. The problem is that you're a lazy man. Like, that's the issue, right? You did nothing with what I entrusted to you. Listen, you know what this guy forgot? He forgot that it's the doing that makes the difference. It's the doing that makes the difference. Get this boss, he's not upset because this guy did something bad. He's upset because this guy did nothing. He did nothing. He did no thing whatsoever. He did nothing. In fact, look what he says next, verse 27. He's like, at least you could have done this. Well, then you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers so that when I returned, I would have received it back with interest. But you could have at least put it in the bank. And everybody listening to the story is nodding along saying, yeah, you could have at least done that. What are you thinking? Verse 28. And so take the bag of gold from him and give it to the one who has 10 bags. And maybe you hear that and you're like, well, that's not fair. Like, what's that about? You know, the guy's got 10 bags. He don't need no more bags. How come he gets that one guy's bag? Well, listen, this makes total sense because if you were running a company, who would you put in charge of your money? The guy who could double it or the guy who could dig a hole? Right? Yeah, All of a sudden, not so holy anymore. You're just like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Verse 29. For those who have will be given more, and they will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even that which they have will be taken from them. And throw that worthless servant outside into the darkness where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Now, anybody else read this and think, oh my goodness, they done threw that man straight into hell. Are you serious? Weeping and gnashing of teeth. I heard that before. That's where the hellfire is. They don't send that man straight to hell. That is not what happened. All right, listen. First of all, the man who said that was a made-up character in Jesus' made-up story. He did not have the power to send anybody to hell. Okay, that's not even a thing. All right? But here's the thing. We think that because we see weeping and gnashing of teeth. But what weeping and gnashing of teeth here represents is sadness and regret. And what Jesus is saying here, the point that he's making here is that this guy who forgot that it's doing that makes the difference, this guy who forgot that it's doing that makes the difference, that as a result of forgetting that, his life was filled with sorrow, sadness, and regret. The end. And then Jesus just moves on to the next story that he tells. So what's the point? Like, what's the point of this story that Jesus is telling? Here it is. The point that he's trying to make here is this, that you and I, we are responsible to do something with what we've been given. We're responsible to do something with what we've been given. And as a matter of principle, whenever we don't do that, we'll be sad and have regret as a result, right? Listen, whenever you have a moment with God, whenever you get to a place where you have clarity about what you should or shouldn't do next, whenever you get to a place where you feel God nudging you in a certain direction, you got to remember it's doing that makes the difference. It's not okay to be like, oh, well, that was a nice moment. No, you got to do something with that moment. It's not okay to just stay where you are. You've got to move. You have to do something because it's doing that makes the difference. Look at James 1:22. James, the brother of Jesus, says this, do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves, but do what it says. He says, hey, listen, if you don't do something with what you've heard or what you hear, it won't do you any good. In fact, if you think it will, you're just fooling yourself. Why? Because it's doing that makes the difference. You see, this is the reason why one of the most important things that you can do to reach your full potential this year is to make sure that you're not just hearing, to make sure that you're just not having moments where you kind of feel like you have some direction or moments where you learn something new about what God might want you to do. That the most important thing you can do is actually make sure that you're doing, that you're applying these things to your life. Making sure that there's movement in your life. What's movement? Movement comes down to application. Movement comes down to growth. Movement comes down to saying, all right, God, here's what you're teaching me. I'm going to do something with it. I'm not going to leave it undone. I'm not just going to dismiss it. I'm not just going to believe that that's a good thing, but I'm actually going to apply that to my life. You got to make sure that you don't just position yourself in a place where you have moments with God, but you got to take what happens in those moments. You got to take what you learn in those moments. You got to take what God inspires you to do in those moments, like when you're here in a place like this. And you got to turn that into action in your life. Why? Because it's doing that makes the difference. You see, whether you're 8 or 88, we believe that every single person has a next step. Like everyone has room to grow, right? Every single one of us. And it's not okay for us to just stay where we are. See, God has a grander plan for you than for you to just stay where you are. God has a grander plan, a grander vision for your life than for you to just stay where you are. And so we have to be people who just don't believe some stuff. That we've got to be people who actually begin to live it out, to put it into action, to take belief and turn it into action. Why? Because it's the doing that really makes the difference. You know, one of the things that I love most about God is this. God meets us right where we are. Isn't that true? Like wherever you are, God meets us right where we are. But you know what else I love about God? He also loves us enough not to leave us there. Like he meets every single one of us right where we are, but he also loves us enough not to leave us there. Come on, for some of you, you just need somebody to tell you that there are better things ahead for you than what you've settled for so far. Right? See, some of you have given up on the doing because you don't think there's anything better. But you need to know the doing is what makes the difference. And so let's be people who don't just believe some stuff, but let's be people who put belief into action, right? You with me? Now, here's the thing about that. Easier said than done. Isn't that true? It's like, oh, put belief into action. The difference is made in the doing. The doing makes all the difference. All right, yeah. Little Dr. Seuss action, nice. But come on, when the rubber meets the road, when you actually try to live that out, it's like, this doing ain't so easy, right? Anybody else ever experienced that the doing ain't so easy? Yes? More than one of us? Great, yeah. Oh, thank you. Everybody's like, right? Yeah. The doing isn't so easy. In fact, if I were you, if I were sitting where you're sitting and I was listening to me say these things, I would immediately want to write me an email that would probably go something like this. Dear Kent, as usual, your sermon today was incredible. 3 exclamation points. Thank you. My main takeaway from what you said is that it's not enough to just believe some things. We've got to take it a step further and put belief into action. It's doing that makes the difference. Nailed it, right? Good job paying attention. Your winsome personality and good looks are only rivaled by your towering communication skills. Guys, stop it. You're too much. I have to admit, I'm really inspired to give this a shot, but I have just one question. How? Like how? And don't you dare say just do it. Because if it were as easy as just doing it, I would have done it a long time ago. Preach. I appreciate knowing what to do. Now, if you could just please explain how to do it, that would be great. From the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you for being an amazing pastor. Much love, insert name here. Oh, guys. Thanks for that. I get what you're saying. I totally get it. It's not so easy. This doing part, is it? Right? And it's not that you don't want to do those things. It's not that you don't want to take belief and put it into action in your life. It's not that you don't want to grow. It's not that you don't want to take next steps. It's not that you don't want to begin applying these things to your life. This is what you've experienced is that you just can't. You've tried, but you can't. You haven't been successful doing that. So how? That's the question. How? So since you took so much time writing that incredibly sweet email to me, I want to spend just a few minutes giving you what I think is the best answer I can give you to that question. The most helpful answer I think I can give you to that question. Now, it's not the only answer to that question of how. There's lots of answers to that question. But I think this is the answer that will be the most helpful to you if you apply it to your life. All right? So how? How do you make sure there's movement in your life, growth in your life, application in your life? How do you make sure you do? You don't just believe, but you do. How do you make sure those things happen? How do you make sure there's real movement in your life? Here's how. Most helpful thing I can tell you. Don't do it alone. Don't do it alone. Come on, all of our locations, look at somebody and tell them, don't do it alone. Right? And some of you are like, I don't want to do it with you, but, but he said I had to do this, so don't do it alone, right? Don't do it alone. Don't do it alone. You know what I've learned? Having a partner, having someone in your corner, having someone there to help you, it makes a huge difference. In fact, it makes all the difference. I mean, think about this, just as it relates to the gym. It's so much easier to talk yourself out of going to the gym if there's no one there waiting for you to get there. Isn't that true? Right? This is why having a friend who meets you there, this is why hiring a trainer if you don't have a friend who will meet you there, this is why that's actually helpful. Because those mornings when you would probably just talk yourself out of going, you'll go anyways because they are there, waiting for you to show up. This is the power of accountability. It's true when it comes to the gym, and it's true when it comes to your spiritual life and spiritual growth as well. You see, just like you can't follow Jesus and stay where you are, I think it's also true that you cannot follow Jesus in isolation. You can't. You cannot follow Jesus well. Let me qualify it. In isolation. You cannot do that well by yourself. You see, following Jesus, I don't know if you know it, but it's a team sport. This is an us thing. It's a we thing. It isn't a solo thing. It's a relational thing. And if you're going to reach your full potential, it's going to be because you had somebody or some somebodies in your corner to help you get there. It's a team sport. So I want you to look at what the writer of Hebrews had to say about this. Hebrews chapter 10, verse 24. He says this, and let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds. But think about this for a second. What are love and good deeds? Isn't that like the perfect example of belief put into action? Like acting out your faith, love and good deeds. If you're a follower of Jesus, then you probably believe that you should love other people. If you're a follower of Jesus, then you probably believe that you should do some good deeds. That's part of following Jesus, doing some good things. But it's one thing to believe it. It's another thing to actually do it, right? Here's the thing. Following Jesus is not enough to just believe those things. No, you got to do those things. And so what's the writer of Hebrews say is the key to actually doing those things? He says, let us consider how we may spur one another on. He says, hey, you can't do it by yourself. You're going to need somebody else with you, someone to challenge you, someone to encourage you, someone to help you along the way. He says, I want you to be so connected to some other people that whenever they see you or you see them start to slip, start to fall, start to fade away, then one of you will actually jump into action and do something to spur that other person on, to spur, to provoke, to inspire, to urge them on in a better direction. In other words, he says, hey, if you're going to keep going in the right direction, it's going to be because you had some other people in your life that helped you keep doing that. And then he goes on, he says this, verse 25, he says, not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. He says, not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing. He says, hey, I don't want you to give up being in each other's lives. I don't want you to give up setting aside time to be with other people and developing meaningful, significant relationships with others that will help you grow spiritually. I don't want you to give up doing that. He says, listen, you need each other. You can't do this by yourself. You've got to have some other people in your life that will encourage you. Encourage you to what? Live out your faith. Because you need encouraging in order to do that. Right? Live out your faith at work. Live out your faith as a parent. Live out your faith as a student. Live out your faith just in life. You need encouragement in order to be able to do that. I love the word encourage because that word literally means to put courage into. Here's what he's saying. He's saying, listen, I want you to be such a part of each other's lives with a group of people that the relationship that you have with each other literally puts courage into you as you try to live out your faith together. He says, that's the kind of relationship that I want you, that's the kind of meaningful relationships that I want you to pursue with one another. In other words, he's saying, listen, if the totality of your Christian experience, if the totality of your following Jesus experience exists just in sitting in a row on a Sunday morning and listening to 3 songs, 2 of which you don't like very much, the third one you're like, yeah, I kind of like that one. Listening to some guy blab on for about 30 minutes and then boom, you're out. He's saying, you're missing the point. There's something so much better, so much bigger, so much more valuable to you than just sitting in a row. There's something so much more meaningful about following me than just sitting in a row. Here's what I know. There is an undeniable connection. There is an absolutely undeniable connection between being in community and your personal spiritual growth. You need to know that. There is an undeniable connection between being in community and your personal spiritual growth. In fact, one of the things that I've noticed over the years, I think it's so cool to be a pastor because I feel like I get like a front row seat to the story of people's lives. One of the things I've noticed happen over and over and over again is that oftentimes a person's first step away from God is a step away from God's people. That's true. I've seen that play out so many times. But I think the opposite is also true. I think it's possible that for many of us, the most significant thing that we could do to make sure that we're moving toward God this year is to make sure that we're moving toward and not away from God's people as well. That's why we've said it around here for years. We've said it this way. We've said there's something that happens in circles that just doesn't happen in rows. Don't get me wrong, I love the rows. I think the rows are awesome. God uses the rows in powerful ways to make a difference in all kinds of people's lives at all of our different locations. These rows are great. That's awesome. But there's something about a circle. There's something about getting with a group of people who know your name and you know theirs, and you pray for each other and encourage one another. Listen, so much, I think, of our spiritual growth, it begins with knowing and being known by other people. That can't happen in a row on Sunday morning. Rows are great, but that can't happen there, right? So much of what the church is supposed to be to a person can't happen just in this context. That's why that's why you need, that's why we all need not just a row, but a circle. See, it's in a circle. It's in a group where a handful of people really do life together. Man, that's where the action is. That's where the essence, the value of the church really happens. That's where life-on-life transformation really takes place. That's where you learn to carry one another's burdens, and your burdens can be carried by others. That's where you learn to accept and are accepted by others. That's where you can share your struggles and then realize that you're not the only one who struggles like that. And not only that, but they're not going to kick you out of the group. Instead, what you realize is that, oh man, somebody else is going to raise their hand and say, you know what? Me too. And all of a sudden you have this moment, this epiphany where you're like, man, I'm not the only one struggling. We're not the only couple going through a hard time. I'm not the only guy having a tough time with this. And there's something empowering about that. We're in this together, right? All of a sudden you realize there's more people that are just like you, but at the same time, just like you, they don't want to stay that way either. Like they really want to grow and become everything that God has always dreamed for them to become, right? And what I think is interesting is that over and over and over again, all throughout the New Testament, what we see taught by Jesus and others is that real life transformation happens best within the context of these kinds of relationships. Life on life. That's why for the past 10 years, we've said it over and over and over and over again. There's something that happens in circles that just doesn't happen in all these rows. And gang, if I had to pick between you being in a circle and you being in a row, even though both of them are really important, I would pick for you to be in a circle. You know why? Here's why. Because your row don't know. It's true. Your row does not know. When it comes to the condition of your heart, your row don't know. Look around. Look at them. They don't know. They don't know, do they? Like what's really going on in your life right now? They don't know. Your struggles, your row don't know. Your potential, your patterns, your row don't know. Your hopes, your habits, your dreams, your row does not know. They do not know. And so that's the reason why the thing I want for you so badly is for you to have a network of relationships with other people that really know you. people that can pray for you and encourage you, people who know your burdens and can help you carry them, people who know you enough that they can lovingly call you on your crap, and that's a biblical word. They can call you on your junk, and you're not offended by it because you know they love you, and you know they want what's best for you, and you know they're doing that because you do that to them. And the interest is in each other growing and being the person God always dreamed for you both to be, right? And it's in those kinds of relationships that we grow better, that we grow deeper, that we grow finer over time. Man, I want you to reach your full potential this year. I really do. But here's what you need to know. You will not get there. You cannot get there on your own. You're going to have some people that come alongside you and help you along the way. You know, I love the title of this series. Just that one word, potential. You know the thing I love about it? I love that it's a little bit ambiguous. Like you can read that word potential and you can go, oh man, they've got so much potential and they're on their way. Or you can read that word potential and you can say, oh man, they had so much potential and they never achieved it. Right? It goes both ways. Listen. If you're going to reach your full potential, you're not going to get there on your own. You need some other people to help you do that. And here's the thing. The I'm content just like I am you know what I'm talking about? The you that's like, no, I'm fine. I'm good. Just leave me alone. Like that you doesn't have time for this. That you doesn't have time for this. But the I'm going to fulfill my full potential you, that I'm going to get this done, you. The man, this year's going to be better than last year, you. The man, I'm not sitting back anymore. I'm moving forward. I'm moving toward this thing, you. The man, I really want to be everything God wants me to be, you. That I really want to live my best life right here now, you. That you desperately needs this. Desperately needs a group, desperately needs other people in your life to help you move in a better direction, right? So here's my question. Here's my question for all of us. Who are the people in your life who spur you on toward love and good deeds? Like who are the people in your life? Who are the groups that challenge you and encourage you? Who are the people that help make sure that you're moving in a better direction? Listen, if you don't have a group like that, you need one. You absolutely need one. If you don't have a group like that, let me say this. We want to be that for you. Like we want to be those people for you. So here's how we do that at Epic. We call them life groups. They're groups of 10 to 15 people that meet in homes all around the city. There's different groups that have different things that they do together. There's groups that do activities together. There's groups that study a book of the Bible together. There's groups that study books together. There's groups that learn how to do their finances better together. There's groups that run together. I don't get them, but they do that. That's a thing. There's groups that eat together, a little more my speed, right? There's all kinds of different groups. And there's a group that's perfect for you, just waiting for you to be part of. And not just that, there's a group that not only do you need them, but they need you. So I just want to challenge you. If you're not part of a group like that, you need to be part of a group like that. You know what's so amazing about all these different groups? Every single semester that we start them, we're getting ready to start next week. They start, and if you're like, I can't start next week, then start the week after that. That's okay. Every single semester, people jump into groups, and they walk in not knowing anyone. But so often, by the end of the group, they walk out having some of the most significant relationships that they have in this city. And not only that, they walk out at the end of that group having made better choices, better decisions, and having moved in a better direction than they would have had they not had that group of people in their life to help urge them and move them and compel them to move in that direction. Man, I want that for you so bad. I want that for you so bad. So if you're not connected to a group, I want to encourage you to check them out. You can go online, epic.church/groups. There's a list of all the different types of groups. Again, they start next week. And here's the thing. If you get into a group and you're like, I don't know. I don't think these are my people. Like, these are not my people. That's okay that they're not your people. Go to another group. Just disappear. Just be like, I'm out. Go to another group. Find your people. You need to find your people. Now, I know some of you are like, no, I tried a group one time, or, I don't know about, I'm a little bit introvert, I'm not really an extrovert. Like 75% of us are introverts, by the way, right? Here's the thing, if you're like, oh, groups, that's not really my thing. I think that's kind of like saying, dinner, that's not really my thing. Like, just because you had a bad meal once or twice, you don't just throw dinner out altogether. You know what I'm saying? Like, just because you had a not so great experience with a group or some other people at some point, you don't just throw out groups altogether. You have no idea what hangs in the balance of your decision to move toward, not away from God's people. You have no idea what about your future hangs in the balance of your decision to move toward, not away from God's people. You have no idea. So we want to help you do that. So at this time, our location pastors, all of our locations, are going to come on out and then give you some specific next steps that you can take. And together, this year, we're going to reach our full potential. You with me? Good.